I'm Samantha Wilson, 32, and I still remember the moment that shattered me. Standing at the altar in my white dress, I turned to see my family's seats completely empty. While Ryan's side overflowed with relatives, mine held just 3 friends. Minutes before walking down the aisle alone, I'd checked my phone one last time. Nothing. That day, I learned what true abandonment feels like, but I had no idea it was just the beginning of a calculated betrayal that would unravel everything I thought I knew about the people who raised me. Before I dive into this story, where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments below and hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever had family drama that left you speechless. Trust me, what I'm about to share might make your family tensions seem mild by comparison. Before my wedding turned into a nightmare, my life felt like it was finally coming together. I had built a successful career as a marketing executive at a digital agency in Chicago. The hours were long, but I thrived on the creative challenges and had finally reached a position where I could pick and choose the clients I wanted to work with. It was at an industry conference in San Francisco that I met Ryan. He was giving a presentation on ethical marketing practices, and something about his passion and integrity instantly drew me in. We struck up a conversation at the networking event afterward, and I was surprised by how easily we connected. Unlike the typical superficial conference chatter, we talked for hours about everything from our childhood dreams to our biggest professional failures. Ryan lived in Chicago too, just across town from me. What were the odds? We exchanged numbers, and within a week, we were having dinner at a small Italian restaurant near the lake. That first date turned into weekly dates, which turned into spending nearly every day together. Ryan was thoughtful in ways I hadn't experienced before, remembering small details about my preferences, supporting my ambitions, and making me laugh when work stress threatened to overwhelm me. On our 1-year anniversary, Ryan took me to a rooftop restaurant overlooking the Chicago skyline. The evening was perfect starlit sky, gentle breeze, and a private table decorated with my favorite lilies. When dessert arrived, I found a small velvet box beside my chocolate soufflé. Ryan got down on one knee and, with tears in his eyes, asked me to marry him. The ring was simple and elegant, a sapphire surrounded by tiny diamonds. Exactly the style I'd mentioned preferring over traditional engagement rings months before. "Yes," I cried, my hands shaking as he slipped the ring onto my finger. 1,000 times yes. That night, I called my family, buzzing with excitement. My mother Nancy answered with her typical reserved tone. "Mom, I'm engaged." I practically squealed into the phone. There was a pause before she responded. "Oh, that's wonderful, honey. It's just so soon, isn't it?" Her lukewarm response caught me off guard, but I brushed it aside. Mom had always been the practical one, cautious about big life decisions. I thought she'd warm up to Ryan once she got to know him better. To understand what happened next, you need to know a bit about my family. I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood in suburban Michigan. My parents divorced when I was 15, a messy, bitter split that divided our family in painful ways. My father, Thomas, remarried just 3 years later to Diane, a woman who made it clear she had little interest in being a stepmother to teenage children. My stepsister, Allison, Diane's daughter from her previous marriage, moved in with them and quickly became the center of my father's world. She was 2 years younger than me, pretty and outgoing, and seemed to excel effortlessly at everything from academics to sports, or at least that's how my father portrayed her. Our relationship was strained from the start, marked by competition for my father's attention and approval. My older brother Ethan had always been closer to our mother and took her side after the divorce. He harbored resentment toward our father that hardened over the years into a rigid judgment of anything associated with Dad. Yet paradoxically, he still sought Dad's approval, creating a complicated dynamic where he criticized our father while simultaneously trying to impress him. My younger sister Brooke was the family peacemaker. Only 13 when our parents split, she tried desperately to maintain relationships with everyone. She was the one person I felt truly close to, though even our relationship had been tested by the family fractures. Throughout the years, I navigated these complex family dynamics, accepting the tension as normal. I thought we had reached a place of relative stability, strained holiday gatherings, occasional awkward family events, but nothing that suggested the level of betrayal that was coming. As Ryan and I began wedding planning, I was filled with optimism. Maybe our wedding would be the event that finally brought my fragmented family together. Looking back, I couldn't have been more wrong. 6 months before the wedding, I flew home to Michigan to discuss our plans with my family. Ryan couldn't join me due to an important client meeting, which in retrospect was probably a blessing. It meant he didn't witness the first clear signs of what was to come. From the moment my father picked me up at the airport, something felt off. His hug was stiff, his questions about the flight, and my work perfunctory. When I enthusiastically started sharing wedding ideas during the car ride to his house, he changed the subject to Allison's recent promotion. "That's great for her," I said, trying to be polite before steering the conversation back. "So, for the wedding, Ryan and I are thinking a garden ceremony with about 100 guests. What do you think?" My father cleared his throat. "Sounds expensive." "We're managing the budget carefully," I assured him. "And Ryan's parents have generously offered to help." He made a sound that wasn't quite a scoff, but certainly wasn't approval. That evening, as I was unpacking in my old bedroom at my father's house, I overheard him talking to Diane in the kitchen below. "I just don't understand the rush," Diane said. "They've only known each other a year." "I know," my father agreed. "And what do we really know about this guy? He seems too polished. Too perfect." "Exactly," Diane continued. "And have you noticed how he always has the right answer for everything? It's like he's calculated exactly what to say to impress us." "Sam's always been impulsive," my father sighed. "Remember that art school phase she went through?" Their laughter felt like a punch to the stomach. Art school hadn't been a phase, it had been my dream until my father made it clear he wouldn't support me financially if I pursued it. I confronted him the next morning over coffee, trying to keep my voice steady. "Dad, I overheard you and Diane last night. If you have concerns about Ryan, I wish you'd talk to me directly." He looked startled, then defensive. "You're misinterpreting, Sam. We're just concerned about the timing. Marriage is a big commitment." "I'm 32, Dad. I know what I'm doing." He patted my hand in that condescending way I'd always hated. "Of course you do, sweetheart." Dinner with my mother later that week went marginally better, but still left me uneasy. We met at her favorite bistro, and she greeted me with a hug that felt genuine. But as I shared our wedding plans, she kept making subtle comments that undermined my choices. "A garden wedding? What if it rains?" And, "June is such a popular month, everything will be overpriced." And, most painfully, "Are you sure you're not rushing into this? You and Ryan haven't faced any real challenges as a couple yet." When I showed her pictures of Ryan and me, her smile didn't reach her eyes. "He seems nice. I just want to make sure you're not settling because you're worried about your biological clock." "Mom, that's not what this is about. I love him. He's the best person I've ever met." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "I just want you to be sure, honey." My brother Ethan was even less subtle when we met for breakfast the following day. "So what does Ryan do again?" he asked, cutting into his pancakes. "He's the creative director at his agency," I reminded him. "I've told you this before." Right. He nodded. "And he makes good money doing that?" "He does well," I said stiffly. "Why?" Ethan shrugged. "Just making sure he's not after your money or anything. You're doing pretty well yourself these days." "Ryan is successful in his own right," I snapped. "He's not interested in my money." "Hey, just looking out for my little sister," Ethan said, raising his hands defensively. "Remember what happened with Jen from college? Her husband took her for everything in their divorce." I left breakfast feeling angry and defensive. The only family meeting that didn't leave me upset was coffee with Brooke. But even that felt off. My usually chatty sister was quiet and evasive when I asked if she'd be one of my bridesmaids. "Of course," she said, but her smile seemed forced. "I'd be honored." When I asked what was wrong, she just shook her head. "Nothing, just tired from work." But she wouldn't meet my eyes, and she changed the subject whenever I brought up the wedding. The dress shopping disaster was the final blow of that trip. I'd scheduled appointments at 2 bridal boutiques, hoping to include both my mother and stepmother in the experience. Somehow, despite clear communication about the dates, they ended up scheduled for different days. "I'm sorry, honey, but I can't reschedule," my mother said when I called to fix the confusion. "I have patients booked all day." She was a therapist, specializing in family counseling. Ironically, and I have my charity committee, Diane said when I called her. It's been on the calendar for months. In the end, I went dress shopping alone, sending them pictures that received lukewarm responses. That's nice, dear, from my mother. Interesting choice, from Diane. I flew back to Chicago feeling confused and hurt. When Ryan picked me up at the airport, I broke down in the car, telling him everything. Maybe they're just adjusting to the idea, he suggested gently, wiping away my tears. Sometimes parents have a hard time seeing their children as adults making major life decisions. I wanted to believe him, but a knot of unease had formed in my stomach. That night, Brooke called me, her voice hushed as if she was afraid of being overheard. Sam, I need to tell you something. There was a family dinner at Dad's last weekend that I was invited to, but you weren't. They were all talking about your wedding, and not in a good way. What do you mean? I asked, my heart sinking. I can't get into details right now. But just be careful, okay? Not everyone is as happy about this as they should be. Before I could press for more information, she said she had to go and hung up abruptly. I stared at my phone, the knot in my stomach tightening. Something was very wrong. But I still couldn't imagine just how bad it would get. 4 months before the wedding, Ryan's parents insisted on hosting an engagement party at their beautiful home in the Chicago suburbs. Charlotte and Gerald Mercer were everything my parents weren't: warm, enthusiastic, and genuinely excited about our marriage. They wanted to meet my family and welcome them into their home. It'll be perfect, Charlotte assured me as we planned the menu together. Just a lovely afternoon for the families to get to know each other before the big day. I sent formal invitations to everyone: my father and Diane, my mother, Ethan, Brooke, and even Allison, along with personal phone calls to confirm they'd received them. Everyone responded positively, though I noticed a certain hesitation in their voices. We wouldn't miss it, my father said, though I thought I detected Diane whispering something in the background. The day before the party, the cancellations began, one after another. My father called first. Sam, I'm terribly sorry, but there's an emergency at work. A client crisis that I absolutely can't delegate. My father was an accountant. While there could certainly be urgent matters in his line of work, the timing seemed suspicious. An hour later, my mother called. Samantha, I hate to do this, but I've come down with a terrible flu. I'm running a fever and can't possibly travel. I'd just infect everyone. She sounded perfectly healthy to me. Then Ethan. My son has an ear infection. We were up all night. We can't make the trip. I'm so sorry. Even Brooke, who'd never let me down before. There's been a flood in my apartment. I have to deal with the repairs this weekend. By that evening, every single member of my family had backed out. I stared at my phone in disbelief, wondering if I was being paranoid or if this was really happening. The next day, as Ryan's extended family arrived with gifts and excited hugs, I had to explain the conspicuous absence of anyone from my side. Unfortunately, a series of emergencies came up, I said, my cheeks burning with embarrassment. They're all very sorry to miss it. Charlotte squeezed my arm sympathetically. These things happen, dear. We'll have plenty of other opportunities to meet them. But I could see the questions in her eyes and the concerned glances she exchanged with Gerald. Ryan's sister Madison pulled me aside during the party. Sam, is everything okay? Really okay? Because this seems strange. Madison was 3 years younger than Ryan, with his same direct gaze and kind smile. We'd hit it off immediately when we first met. I don't know, I admitted, fighting back tears. Something feels wrong, but I can't put my finger on it. Well, I'm here for you, she said firmly. Whatever you need. Consider me your sister already. The party continued, with Ryan's relatives doing their best to fill the void left by my family. His aunts, uncles, cousins, and family friends were lovely, asking about my work and sharing embarrassing stories about Ryan's childhood. Under different circumstances, it would have been a perfect day. But I couldn't shake the hollow feeling in my chest, especially when it came time for toasts and only Ryan's father stood up to speak. There should have been words from my father or brother, some welcome from my side of the family. That night, after everyone had left and we were cleaning up with Ryan's parents, I excused myself to make a call. I dialed my father's number. determined to get a straight answer. "Dad, what happened today? Did you really have a work emergency?" "Of course I did," he said, sounding offended. "Would I lie about something like that?" "I don't know, would you?" I challenged, because it seems awfully coincidental that everyone in the family suddenly had an emergency on the same day. "Now you're being ridiculous, Samantha," he said coldly. "I can't speak for the others, but I had legitimate reasons for not attending. I don't appreciate the accusation, Dad. I have to go. We'll talk later." He hung up, leaving me staring at my phone in shock. I called Brooke next, and to my surprise, she answered. "Brooke, please tell me what's going on," I pleaded. "The truth." There was a long pause before she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "They think Ryan isn't good enough for you." "What? Based on what?" "Dad and Diane have been saying he seems fake, too perfect. Mom thinks you're rushing into things. Ethan thinks Ryan might be using you to advance his career since your agency is bigger than his. And Allison. Well, Allison just likes stirring up trouble. And you? What do you think?" I asked, my voice breaking. "I think they're being ridiculous," she said. "But I couldn't go against all of them, Sam. I'm sorry. I should have been stronger." I ended the call and sat on Ryan's parents' back porch, trying to process what was happening. My family was actively sabotaging my relationship, judging Ryan without even trying to know him. When I went back inside, Ryan took one look at my face and wrapped me in his arms. "We'll figure this out," he promised. "Whatever it is, we'll face it together." I nodded against his chest, clinging to him like a lifeline. I was determined to make our wedding perfect, despite my family's behavior. If they couldn't be happy for me, then I would find happiness without them. What I didn't know then was that the engagement party boycott was just the beginning. Later that night, scrolling through social media, I discovered posts from both my father and brother from that day, neither showing any signs of work emergencies or sick children. Instead, they were at a local baseball game together, smiling broadly for the camera. My mother, supposedly bedridden with flu, had been tagged at a spa day with friends. The evidence of their lies was right there on my screen, undeniable and devastating. They hadn't even bothered to hide their deceit, assuming perhaps that I wouldn't notice or wouldn't confront them. That night, as Ryan slept peacefully beside me, I stared at the ceiling and wondered how well I really knew my own family. 3 months before the wedding, I was deep in planning mode, determined to create a perfect day despite my family's strange behavior. Ryan and I had chosen a beautiful garden venue at a historic estate outside Chicago, with a glass-enclosed reception area overlooking manicured grounds. The deposit had been paid, the date confirmed, and everything was proceeding smoothly until it wasn't. I was at work when I received a call from Andrea, the venue coordinator. "Miss Wilson, I'm calling about your cancellation request." "My what?" I asked, confused. "We received an email from you this morning asking to cancel your reservation for June 18th. As per our policy, we'll need to retain 50% of your deposit." "But I didn't send any email," I interrupted, my heart racing. "I absolutely did not cancel my reservation." There was an awkward pause. "Oh, I see. Well, the email came from your address. Would you like me to forward it to you?" "Yes, please." Immediately. Minutes later, I was staring at an email that appeared to come from my account, politely explaining that Ryan and I had decided to postpone our wedding and requesting cancellation of the reservation. It even included personal details only someone who knew me would know, mentioning how we'd decided to take time to reconsider our compatibility after family concerns were raised. I called the venue back immediately, explained the situation, and drove there after work to provide identification and reinstate our reservation. Andrea was understanding but concerned. "This is highly unusual," she said, studying my driver's license. "The person who called to follow up on the email knew your security question answers." A cold feeling settled in my stomach. Only a few people would know the answers to my security questions, which were based on childhood memories and family information. Later that evening, Ryan and I tried to figure out who could have done this. I had suspicions, but no proof until a slip-up gave it away. I called Allison under the pretense of asking for wedding planning advice, as she'd gotten married 2 years earlier. Actually, I said casually, I'm having second thoughts about our venue. Did you tour the Lakeside Gardens estate when you were planning your wedding? No, she replied automatically. They were already booked for my date. But it's for the best that you're reconsidering. Their garden area is way too small for the number of guests you're inviting. I froze. I had never told Allison the name of our venue or the details of our guest list. The only way she could know those specifics was if she had accessed my wedding planning accounts or emails. How did you know we chose Lakeside Gardens? I asked quietly. There was a pause before she answered, her voice suddenly defensive. You must have mentioned it before. No, Allison. I didn't. Just like I didn't send an email canceling our reservation there yesterday. I don't know what you're talking about, she said quickly. Look, I have to go. Brad's calling me. I confronted my father the next day, driving to his office during lunch hour to ensure he couldn't avoid me. His secretary tried to tell me he was in a meeting, but I walked past her desk and opened his office door anyway. He looked up from his computer, surprised. Samantha? What are you doing here? Someone tried to cancel my wedding venue yesterday, I said without preamble. And somehow, Allison knows details about it that I never shared with her. My father's expression shifted from surprise to irritation. And you immediately assume your stepsister is to blame? This is exactly the kind of dramatic overreaction that concerns me about you getting married right now. You're clearly not in a stable frame of mind. Dad, Allison knew the name of our venue and commented on the garden size relative to our guest count information she could only have if she accessed my accounts. Perhaps you mentioned it and forgot, he suggested dismissively. Or Ryan did. This paranoid attitude is troubling, Samantha. I stared at him, suddenly seeing with crystal clarity what was happening. You know, don't you? You're in on this. In on what? He asked, but his eyes slid away from mine. The sabotage. The systematic attempts to ruin my wedding. First, the engagement party. Now this. You're being ridiculous, he said, standing up. I think you should leave and calm down. Call me when you're thinking rationally again. I left his office shaking not with sadness, but with rage. In my car, I finally broke down, sobbing with my forehead against the steering wheel. I felt utterly betrayed and completely alone. That evening, I met my childhood friend Lauren for coffee. We'd grown up next door to each other and remained close despite the distance after I moved to Chicago. Unlike my family, she was genuinely thrilled about my engagement. I can't believe they would do this, she said after I told her everything. Actually, no, scratch that. I can believe it, which is the saddest part. Your family has always tried to control you, Sam. What am I going to do? I asked, wiping away tears. The wedding is 3 months away, and I'm terrified of what they might try next. First, change all your passwords, Lauren advised. Email, wedding planning sites, vendor contacts, everything. Then add extra security questions that only you and Ryan would know the answers to. And then what? Pretend everything is fine at the wedding when half the guests know my family is actively trying to stop it from happening? Lauren reached across the table and squeezed my hand. No. You set boundaries. Make it clear that if they can't support you, they don't need to attend. And honestly, Sam, given what they've done, maybe that would be for the best. That night, I received a text from my mother, her first communication since the failed engagement party. Have you considered a longer engagement, sweetheart? There's no rush, and it would give everyone time to adjust. I didn't respond. Instead, I called Brooke, hoping my sister would be honest with me. She answered on the first ring, her voice hushed. Sam, I can't talk long. Brooke, I need to know what's happening. Someone tried to cancel my venue, and I'm pretty sure it was Allison with Dad's knowledge. There was a long pause before she spoke. It's worse than you think, Sam. They're actively trying to stop the wedding. All of them, in different ways. Mom's been calling Ryan's extended family, claiming to be concerned about his history of commitment issues. Dad and Diane have been contacting vendors pretending to be you. Ethan's been telling mutual friends that the engagement is shaky and they shouldn't be surprised if the wedding is called off. I felt the blood drain from my face. Why? Why would they do this? Control, Brooke said simply. You've always been the one who got away, who built a life independent from their drama. They can't stand it, especially now that you've found someone who supports that independence. After hanging up, I sat Ryan down and told him everything. As I spoke, his expression changed from concern to anger to determination. "We need to add security to our wedding," he said finally. "Password protect everything with the vendors. Inform them about the situation so they know to verify any changes directly with both of us, in person or by video call. And most importantly, we need to decide if you want your family there at all." "I don't know," I admitted. "Part of me still hopes they'll come around." Ryan took my hands in his. "I will support whatever you decide. But Sam, I need you to consider something. If they're willing to go this far to undermine our wedding, what will they do to undermine our marriage?" It was a sobering question, one that kept me awake that night. The next day, I strengthened security on all our wedding arrangements, created new email accounts for wedding communications, and personally visited each vendor to explain the situation. Most were sympathetic, having dealt with family drama around weddings before, though none quite as extreme as mine. As the weeks passed, I grew increasingly anxious about what my family might try next. My fears were well-founded, as I would soon discover in the most painful way yet. 2 months before the wedding, it was time for our bachelor and bachelorette parties. Ryan's brothers had planned an overnight fishing trip to Wisconsin for him and his friends. For my celebration, my cousin Jessica had taken on maid of honor duties and organized a weekend in Nashville with a group of my closest friends. I was actually looking forward to the distraction after weeks of wedding sabotage stress. Jessica had always been one of the few family members I felt truly close to, and she seemed genuinely excited about the wedding. 3 days before we were set to leave, Jessica called me, sounding confused. "Sam, I just wanted to check in about the bachelorette cancellation. Some of the girls are asking if we're planning something else instead." My stomach dropped. "What cancellation? The email you sent last week? Saying you needed to cancel Nashville because of work commitments? You asked me to let everyone know." Which I did. "Jessica, I never sent that email," I said, my voice shaking. "This is happening again. Someone is impersonating me." There was a long pause. "Oh my God, Sam, I'm so sorry I never questioned it because it came from your email. I've already canceled the Airbnb and activities." We spent the next hour trying to salvage the plan, but it was too late to rebook accommodations in Nashville on such short notice. Jessica was mortified and angry on my behalf. "I can't believe someone in our family would do this," she said. "This is beyond petty, it's cruel." Lauren stepped in to organize a scaled-down local celebration instead. On the night of what should have been my Nashville bachelorette weekend, only 3 friends showed up to the hastily arranged dinner at my favorite Chicago restaurant. "Where is everyone?" I asked Lauren as we sat at a table clearly set for more people. She looked uncomfortable. "A lot of people got conflicting information. Some said you canceled entirely. Others heard the date had changed. I tried to clear it up, but..." She trailed off. I excused myself to the restroom and checked my phone. There was a text from Jessica. "Sam, I found something. Someone used your old email account to forward our bachelorette communications to your mom's email. I think she's been monitoring our plans and then sabotaging them." I leaned against the bathroom wall, feeling physically ill. My own mother was stalking my wedding plans to undermine them. It was a level of betrayal I couldn't comprehend. When I returned to the table, I tried to put on a brave face for the friends who had shown up, but inside I was devastated. The next morning, Ryan returned from his bachelor party, and I could immediately tell something was wrong. He was quiet and distant, checking his phone repeatedly. "What happened?" I asked as he unpacked his bag. He hesitated. "It's nothing. Just tired from the trip." "Ryan, please. After everything that's happened, we need to be honest with each other." He sat heavily on the edge of our bed. "Someone's been calling my friends, and my ex-girlfriends, asking questions about me, implying that I have a history of problematic behavior with women." "What?" I gasped. "Who would do that?" The calls came from a blocked number, but 2 of my exes said it was a man claiming to be your brother, concerned for your well-being. "Ethan." "It had to be. There's more," Ryan continued reluctantly. "Apparently, this person has been spreading rumors about you too, claiming you have a history of instability, that you've threatened self-harm when relationships ended in the past." I felt like I'd been slapped. These weren't random lies, they were calculated distortions of my difficult period after college, when I'd struggled with anxiety and depression following a bad breakup. It was a painful time I'd shared only with my family, particularly my mother during one of our rare periods of closeness. My mother told him, I whispered. She's the only one who knew those details. Ryan pulled me into his arms as I began to cry. We'll get through this, Sam. Their lies can't touch what we have. But the damage had been done. Ryan's friends were giving him concerned looks throughout the weekend, clearly questioning whether they should speak up about the troubled woman he was planning to marry. It took hours of honest conversation for Ryan to reassure them that the rumors were completely false, part of a toxic family dynamic they couldn't understand. As for my side, the few friends who attended my reduced bachelorette celebration had heard the rumors too. Lauren confirmed it when I confronted her. People have been getting calls and texts for weeks, she admitted. I didn't want to upset you, but it's been relentless. Someone is really determined to paint both of you in the worst possible light. I spent the next day conducting my own investigation, calling friends who had received these messages and piecing together the evidence. It became clear that my brother Ethan was the primary instigator of the rumors about Ryan, while my mother had been sharing distorted versions of my past struggles. When I had enough proof, I confronted Ethan directly, meeting him at a coffee shop near his office. Why are you doing this? I demanded, sliding my phone across the table with screenshots of texts he'd sent to my friends. Why are you trying to destroy my relationship? For a moment, he looked shocked, then defensive. I'm trying to protect you. This guy is too perfect, too polished. No one is that good, Sam. He's obviously hiding something. The only people hiding things are you and the rest of this family, I shot back. You've been lying, manipulating, and sabotaging the happiest relationship I've ever had. What kind of brother does that? The kind who doesn't want to see his sister make a huge mistake, he retorted. Dad agrees with me. Mom too. We all think you're rushing into this. So you decided to take it upon yourselves to destroy my wedding? To spread lies about me and Ryan? To cancel venues and parties? Do you have any idea how cruel that is? Ethan had the decency to look slightly ashamed, but he doubled down. Sometimes you have to be cruel to be kind. You'll thank us later when you realize what a mistake you almost made. I stood up, gathering my things. No, Ethan. What I realize is that my family would rather sabotage my happiness than see me build a life that doesn't revolve around their drama. I won't thank you. In fact, I'm not sure I'll ever forgive you. I walked out of the coffee shop feeling hollow but strangely calm. For a moment in my car, I considered calling the whole wedding off not because I had doubts about Ryan, but because the weight of my family's betrayal felt too heavy to bear alongside wedding planning. When I got home, I found Lauren and Madison waiting for me. Ryan had called them, worried about how my confrontation with Ethan would go. I'm thinking about postponing the wedding, I admitted, collapsing onto the couch. I don't know if I can do this with all this toxicity surrounding us. That's exactly what they want, Madison said firmly. They're trying to wear you down until you give in. Lauren nodded in agreement. Sam, I've known your family for 20 years. This is what they do. They can't stand to see you happy and independent. If you postpone, they win. But the rumors, the sabotage, we fight back, Madison declared. Ryan's family is 100% behind you both. Let me help. My event planning experience isn't just for corporate functions. Over the next few hours, the three of us developed a plan. We would create a completely separate set of wedding communications, cut my family out of the planning entirely, and proceed with what Madison called stealth wedding mode. By the end of the evening, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I sent one final message to my entire immediate family. I'm aware of the active campaign to undermine my wedding and relationship. I've seen the evidence. If you can't support my choice to marry Ryan, that's your right, but I will not tolerate further attempts at sabotage. All wedding communications will now go through Madison Mercer. The choice is yours, whether to attend as supportive family members or to stay away entirely. I sent the final invitations the following week, with clear RSVP instructions. The responses would go directly to Madison, bypassing any chance for interference. As the replies began coming in, I noticed a conspicuous silence from everyone in my family. Not a single response, either accepting or declining. Ryan held me as I cried that night, mourning the family I thought I had. "Maybe they'll come around," he whispered into my hair. "But if they don't, we'll build our own family, one based on love and support, not control and manipulation." I nodded against his chest, trying to believe him. But the worst was yet to come. The week before our wedding arrived with a flurry of final preparations. Despite everything that had happened, I still held on to a small hope that my family would come around. They had received the formal invitations like everyone else, and while they hadn't officially RSVP'd, I had reserved seats for them anyway: my parents, Diane, Ethan, Brooke, and even Allison. The rehearsal dinner was scheduled for Friday evening at an upscale restaurant near our venue. Ryan's parents had spared no expense, booking a private room and inviting not just the wedding party but extended family members who had traveled for the occasion. As the start time approached, I kept checking my phone, hoping for a message from someone in my family. The wedding party, Ryan's brothers, Madison, Lauren, and friends who had stepped in as bridesmaids after my family drama all arrived, offering supportive smiles that couldn't quite hide their concern. By 7 o'clock, it was clear. Not a single member of my family was coming. Charlotte noticed me checking my phone again and squeezed my arm. "Shall we go ahead and start, dear?" I nodded, fighting back tears. As we took our seats, the empty chairs set aside for my family seemed to mock me. Ryan held my hand under the table as his father gave a beautiful speech welcoming me to their family. His brothers shared embarrassing stories about Ryan as a kid. Madison raised a toast to us as a couple, and Lauren spoke movingly about our friendship and how happy she was to see me with someone like Ryan. It was a lovely evening filled with laughter and warmth, but the absence of my own family left a hole that no amount of goodwill could fill. Back at our hotel room, I tried calling each of them. My father's phone went straight to voicemail. My mother's rang several times before disconnecting. Ethan didn't answer. Even Brooke, who I'd thought might break ranks, didn't pick up. Finally, around midnight, my phone lit up with a text from Brooke. "Can you talk?" I stepped onto the hotel balcony to take her call, not wanting to wake Ryan, who had finally fallen asleep. "Where were you tonight?" I asked immediately. "I'm so sorry, Sam," Brooke said, her voice thick with tears. "I wanted to be there. I had my dress ready and everything. But then Dad called a family meeting." "A family meeting? About what?" "About the wedding." "About." A unified response. She took a shaky breath. "They've all decided not to attend." The words hit me like a physical blow. "All of them? Even you?" "Sam, you don't understand the pressure. Dad made it clear that anyone who attends is choosing sides against the family. Mom agreed with him, which you know never happens." Ethan backed them up. Even Diane and Allison were there. Nodding along like this was all perfectly reasonable. "And what about you, Brooke?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "What side are you choosing?" There was a long pause. "I'm sorry, Sam. I can't stand against all of them. I still live in the same town. I see them every week. I can't be the only one. So you're just going along with this? This collective punishment? For what? For falling in love? For building a life that doesn't revolve around their dysfunction?" "They don't see it that way," Brooke said weakly. "Dad is convinced Ryan is wrong for you, that he's somehow manipulating you away from the family. Mom thinks you're making an impulsive decision based on infatuation rather than real compatibility. Ethan believes Ryan has ulterior motives. And once they all formed that united front, there was no changing their minds." "And Diane and Allison?" Brooke gave a humorless laugh. "You know they're just happy to see Dad taking a stand against you. Anything that creates distance between you and him is a win in their book." I leaned against the balcony railing, looking out at the Chicago skyline, feeling more alone than I ever had before. "So that's it? My entire family is boycotting my wedding?" "I'm so sorry," Brooke repeated. "I should be stronger. I should stand up to them. But I'm not as brave as you, Sam. I never have been." After we hung up, I sat on the balcony for a long time, letting the cool night air dry my tears. I felt hollow, gutted by the confirmation of what I'd suspected but hadn't wanted to believe. My family had collectively decided to punish me for choosing happiness over their control. The next morning, the day before my wedding, I made a last-ditch effort. While Ryan was at breakfast with his groomsmen, I drove to my parents' houses, determined to speak with them face to face. My father opened the door looking unsurprised to see me. "Samantha, I wondered if you might stop by." "Why are you doing this?" I asked, stepping into the entryway of the home where I'd grown up. "Why is my entire family boycotting my wedding?" He had the audacity to look confused. "Boycotting? That's a strong word. We simply never received proper invitations." I stared at him in disbelief. "Are you serious right now? I sent formal invitations to everyone. Madison confirmed they were delivered. I personally called each of you to confirm." "Well, invitations get lost in the mail sometimes," he said with a shrug. "It happens." "Dad, stop. Just stop lying." Brooke told me about the family meeting, about the united front against my wedding. His expression hardened. If Brooke has been sharing private family discussions, that's between her and me. As for tomorrow, if there was confusion about invitations, I'm sorry. But it's much too late to change plans now. "What plans?" I challenged. "What could possibly be more important than your daughter's wedding?" "Life doesn't revolve around your schedules, Samantha," he said coldly. "Some of us have commitments that can't be broken at the last minute." I left his house feeling numb, then drove to my mother's. Her performance was similar, if slightly more emotional. "Oh, honey," she said, dabbing at dry eyes with a tissue. "I was so hurt when I realized we weren't properly invited. After all the confusion with the engagement party and everything else, I assumed you'd decided against having family there." "Mom, that's not true, and you know it. You're choosing to miss my wedding because you don't approve of my choice, not because of any invitation issues." She reached out to touch my cheek, but I stepped back. "Sam, I'm your mother. I only want what's best for you. If you'd just take some time." "Stop. Just stop." I cut her off. "You're not missing my wedding because of invitations or because you're concerned about me. You're missing it because Dad decreed it, and none of you are willing to stand up to him even though it means hurting me in the process." Her face crumpled then, showing a flash of genuine emotion. "It's complicated, Sam, your father, when he gets an idea in his head. It's actually very simple, Mom. You're choosing to support a vindictive boycott of your daughter's wedding. That's a choice you're making, and it's one I'll remember for the rest of my life." I returned to the hotel, devastated but resolved. Ryan found me packing up the welcome bags I'd made for my family members, the ones filled with Chicago souvenirs and personal notes about how much it meant to have them at our wedding. "They're not coming," I told him flatly. "Not a single one of them. And they're pretending it's because they never got proper invitations." Ryan sat beside me on the bed, taking the partially assembled welcome bags from my hands. "I'm so sorry, Sam." "The worst part is the lying," I said, my voice breaking. "They can't even be honest about what they're doing. They have to create this fiction about lost invitations so they can avoid taking responsibility for their cruelty." Ryan held me as I cried, mourning not just their absence at tomorrow's wedding, but the loss of the family I thought I had, or at least the family I desperately wanted to believe in. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept checking social media, torturing myself by looking at my family members' profiles. What I saw felt like a final twist of the knife. My brother had posted photos of his children at a neighborhood park that afternoon, with the caption, "Perfect day for family time." My father's account showed him preparing his boat for a day on the lake. And most painful of all, my mother had shared pictures from a ladies' lunch with friends, her face bright with laughter. They weren't missing my wedding because of lost invitations or prior commitments. They were actively choosing to do anything else, making a point of their absence, a unified statement of disapproval. As the first light of my wedding day crept through the hotel curtains, I made a decision. I would not let their absence define this day. I would marry the man I loved, surrounded by people who genuinely wished us well. And I would begin the process of accepting that the family I had always longed for might never exist. I woke on my wedding day to sunshine streaming through the hotel windows, and an emptiness in my chest where excitement should have been. Ryan had stayed with his brothers the night before, following tradition, and I found myself alone with thoughts of the family who should have been with me. There was a knock at my door, Lauren and Madison arriving with coffee and breakfast, their arms full of garment bags containing their bridesmaid dresses. "It's wedding day," Madison sang out. setting down a tray of pastries on the desk. Her enthusiasm was genuine but cautious, her eyes searching my face for signs of how I was coping. "How are you doing?" Lauren asked more directly, sitting beside me on the bed. "I'm okay," I said, though we all knew it wasn't entirely true, just processing. "We're here for whatever you need," Madison assured me. "The hair and makeup team will be here in an hour. Ryan's mom is stopping by to bring you something borrowed and blue. And my dad wanted me to tell you he'd be honored to walk you down the aisle if you want that. No pressure at all." Tears welled in my eyes at their kindness. "Thank you for everything." The morning passed in a blur of preparations, hairstyling, makeup application, champagne toasts with the bridesmaids who had stepped in after my family's defection. Charlotte arrived with a vintage sapphire bracelet, borrowed in blue and one, and helped me into my dress with the tender care a mother should provide. As the time approached to leave for the venue, I found myself checking my phone compulsively, still holding on to a sliver of hope that someone from my family might have a last-minute change of heart. "Nothing?" Lauren asked gently, watching me stare at the screen. I shook my head, putting the phone away. "It's time to go." The garden at Lakeside Estate was breathtaking, just as we'd imagined when we booked it, roses in full bloom, a light breeze rippling across the ornamental pond, white chairs arranged in neat rows beneath a flower-covered arbor. I watched from a window in the bridal suite as guests arrived, noting how Ryan's side filled quickly with extended family, childhood friends, and colleagues. My side remained conspicuously empty, save for the few close friends who had stood by me through everything. The coordinator had removed most of the chairs on my side that morning, trying to make the imbalance less obvious, but the visual effect was still stark. Madison's father Gerald knocked gently on the door of the bridal suite. "Everyone's ready when you are, Samantha," he said kindly. "And may I say, you look absolutely beautiful." "Thank you," I said, swallowing the lump in my throat. "And thank you for offering to walk with me. It means more than I can express." He offered his arm with a warm smile. "It's my honor. Truly." As the music began and the bridesmaids processed down the aisle, I took deep breaths, trying to focus on the moment, on Ryan waiting for me beneath the arbor, rather than on the empty spaces where my family should have been. Then it was our turn. Gerald patted my hand reassuringly as we began the walk down the aisle. I fixed my eyes on Ryan, on his face full of love and concern, and felt something steady within me. This man, the one who had stood by me through all the drama and sabotage, who had never once suggested that maybe my family was right, he was my true north now. The ceremony itself was beautiful. We had written our own vows, promises of support and understanding that felt especially poignant given what we'd already weathered together. When the officiant pronounced us husband and wife, I felt a rush of joy that temporarily drowned out the ache of my family's absence. The reception was held in the glass-enclosed garden room, with views of the sunset over the estate grounds. Ryan's family had worked overtime to make sure every detail was perfect, from the centerpieces to the seating arrangements, carefully designed to hide the lack of guests on my side. During the cocktail hour, I overheard snippets of conversation, guests speaking in hushed tones. I heard her entire family refuse to come. Something about not approving of the groom, I think. So sad. She seems lovely, and he comes from such a good family. I plastered on a smile and pretended not to hear, accepting congratulations and well wishes from people who were essentially strangers to me, many of whom had known Ryan since childhood. The toasts were the hardest part. Ryan's father spoke eloquently about marriage and commitment, welcoming me to their family with genuine warmth. His best man, a childhood friend, shared funny stories and heartfelt observations about the kind of man Ryan was. Madison gave a beautiful speech as maid of honor, talking about how quickly she and I had bonded and how grateful she was to have me as a sister. But there was no toast from my father, no embarrassing childhood stories from my mother or siblings. The absence was palpable, a ghost at the feast that no amount of champagne or well wishes could exorcise. The DJ announced the father-daughter dance, not having been informed of my situation despite our efforts to communicate all the complex family dynamics. The opening notes of Stevie Wonder's "Isn't She Lovely," the song I'd once told my father I wanted to dance to at my wedding, filled the room, and I froze on the edge of the dance floor. Ryan was immediately by my side, his hand warm on my back. Before he could speak, Gerald appeared before us. "May I have this dance?" he asked with a gentle smile. "I'm not trying to replace anyone, but I'd be honored to stand in." I blinked back tears and nodded, unable to speak. As Gerald led me onto the dance floor, I caught Charlotte wiping away tears at a nearby table, and Ryan watching with a mixture of gratitude and sadness. "You're family now," Gerald whispered as we danced. "Whatever happened before, whatever brought you to this point, you have a home with us now." I managed to hold myself together until the dance ended, but once I returned to Ryan's side, the emotional weight of the day caught up with me. We slipped away from the reception early, thanking our guests and making our excuses about an early flight for our honeymoon. In our hotel room, still in my wedding dress, I finally broke down completely, sobbing in Ryan's arms. "I'm sorry," I kept saying. "I'm so sorry my family ruined our wedding day." "Hey, look at me," Ryan said, gently lifting my chin. "Nothing was ruined. We're married, we made it through. And the people who really matter were there." But everyone could see they were all whispering about it. "Let them whisper," he said firmly. "Anyone who matters understands that this reflects on them, not on you." As I changed out of my wedding dress, my phone pinged with a notification. Against my better judgment, I checked it, a social media alert showing my family tagged in new photos. My breath caught as I opened the link. There they were, my father, mother, brother, sister, Diane, and Allison at a backyard barbecue, all smiles around a patio table laden with food. The timestamp showed it had been posted during our ceremony. They hadn't just skipped my wedding, they had orchestrated a rival event, a public statement of their rejection, carefully documented for social media. It wasn't enough to boycott. They needed me to see them together without me, happier for my absence. I handed the phone to Ryan silently. He looked at the photos, his jaw tightening. "They wanted you to see this," he said finally. "This was deliberate." "I know," I whispered. "What kind of family does this?" "Not a real one," Ryan replied, pulling me close. "A real family supports each other through good times and bad. A real family might have disagreements but shows up for the important moments anyway. What they did, that's not family. That's a group of people who happen to be related by blood or marriage, using those connections as weapons." As we lay in bed that night, husband and wife for less than 12 hours, I realized that Ryan was right. The people who had boycotted my wedding weren't acting like family at all, and maybe it was time I stopped expecting them to. The first month of marriage passed in a blur of contradictions. Our honeymoon in Hawaii was everything we'd dreamed: sun-drenched days on the beach, exploring lava fields, and watching the sunset from our private balcony. When we were actively engaged in these experiences, I could almost forget the wedding day trauma. But in quiet moments waiting for Ryan to return from getting coffee, or waking before him in the early morning, the pain would rush back, a tidal wave of rejection and betrayal that left me gasping. How could the people who raised me, who claimed to love me, hurt me so deliberately? Back home in Chicago, I tried to focus on the positive. Setting up our new apartment, merging our lives, planning weekend getaways. But the shadow of my family's betrayal loomed over everything. I found myself unable to look at our wedding photos, beautiful as they were, because all I could see were the empty chairs. Ryan noticed my struggling and gently suggested therapy. "Not because there's anything wrong with you," he clarified quickly, "but because what they did was traumatic and you shouldn't have to process it alone." I resisted at first, clinging to the idea that I could handle it myself. But as the weeks passed and my mood continued to swing between numbness and rage, I finally made an appointment with a therapist specializing in family trauma. Dr. Jennifer Martinez created a safe space where I could finally articulate the magnitude of what had happened, not just the wedding boycott, but the years of subtle undermining, the conditional love, the expectation that I would always prioritize my family's wishes over my own happiness. "What your family did was a form of emotional abuse," she told me during one session. "Their coordinated effort to sabotage your wedding and their subsequent gaslighting about invitations, these aren't normal family disagreements. This was a deliberate attempt to control you through pain." Her validation helped, but I still couldn't shake the need for answers, for some explanation that would make sense of their cruelty. After 2 months of therapy and Ryan's unwavering support, I felt strong enough to confront them directly. We were returning from a weekend trip when I made the decision. I need to see them, I told Ryan as we drove back to Chicago. Face to face, all of them together. I need to ask them why and watch them try to justify themselves. Ryan glanced at me, concern evident in his expression. Are you sure? You don't owe them that opportunity. I'm not doing it for them, I clarified. I'm doing it for me. I need closure before I can move forward. The following Sunday, I drove to my father's house, knowing from years of family patterns that everyone gathered there for dinner on the last Sunday of each month. I didn't call ahead or warn anyone. I simply parked on the street and walked up to the door I had passed through countless times throughout my childhood. I heard them before. I saw them, the murmur of voices, the clink of dishes, occasional laughter drifting through the open windows. Taking a deep breath, I rang the doorbell. My father opened the door, his expression changing from casual welcome to shock when he saw me. "Samantha, what are you doing here?" "I've come for Sunday dinner," I said calmly, stepping past him into the entryway. "Isn't that what family does?" I walked into the dining room where conversation immediately ceased. My mother's fork froze halfway to her mouth. Diane's eyes widened in alarm. Ethan and Allison exchanged uncomfortable glances. Only Brooke had the decency to look ashamed, her gaze dropping to her plate. "Sam," my mother finally said, setting down her fork. "This is a surprise." "I'm sure it is," I replied, remaining standing as they all sat around the fully set table. "I have a question for all of you, and I'd appreciate an honest answer for once. Why did none of you come to my wedding?" The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, my father cleared his throat. "As I explained before, there was confusion about the invitations. We never received—" "Stop," I cut him off. "No more lies, no more gaslighting. I know the invitations were delivered. I have delivery confirmations. I have the RSVPs that some of you actually sent before changing your minds. I want the truth." My mother attempted next. "Honey, it was a complicated situation. We had concerns about the timing, about whether you and Ryan were truly compatible. So you decided to boycott my wedding?" I challenged. "To sabotage my venue booking, to spread rumors about my fiancé. That was your solution to having concerns?" Ethan shifted uncomfortably. "We were trying to protect you." "From what? From happiness? From building a life with someone who actually supports me?" "You don't understand the family dynamic you were creating," my father interjected. "This Ryan was pulling you away from us, encouraging your independence in ways that threatened the family structure." I stared at him in disbelief. "My independence threatens you? My happiness with someone who respects me is a problem? Do you even hear yourselves?" "It wasn't like that," Diane insisted, speaking for the first time. "Thomas was concerned about how quickly you were moving, about whether you were making a rational decision." "And who made you part of this decision, Diane?" I asked sharply. "You've never shown interest in my happiness before." "That's not fair, Samantha," my father said, his voice hardening. "No, what's not fair is my entire family conspiring behind my back to ruin the most important day of my life," I retorted. "What's not fair is all of you sitting here pretending you had legitimate reasons for what was nothing more than a power play." Allison, who had been silently watching the exchange, suddenly spoke up. "You've always thought you were too good for this family anyway. Always had to be different, be special. Maybe you needed to be taken down a peg." Her words hung in the air, the naked malice impossible to disguise as concern or protection. Even my father looked uncomfortable at the exposure of the truth behind their actions. "Thank you for your honesty, Allison," I said quietly. "At least someone at this table is willing to admit the truth that this was about punishment, not protection." I turned to leave, having gotten as much truth as I was likely to receive, when Brooke suddenly stood up. "Wait," she said. "Sam, wait." She hurried out of the room and returned moments later with her phone. "You deserve to know everything." I recorded the family meeting where they planned the boycott. "Brooke!" my father thundered. "That was a private family discussion." "A family discussion about deliberately hurting another family member," Brooke countered, her voice shaking but determined. Sam needs to hear it. She pressed play, and my father's voice filled the room. We need to present a united front here. Samantha has made her choice this man over her family, and she needs to learn there are consequences for that kind of disloyalty. My mother's voice. But missing her wedding entirely? Isn't that extreme? My father again. She's forced our hand. If we attend after all our concerns, we're endorsing this relationship. Diane's voice, smug and satisfied. If anyone asks, we can say we never received proper invitations. Much more socially acceptable than admitting to a family rift. Ethan. I'm with Dad on this. She needs a reality check. A younger female voice, Allison. It's not like she ever makes an effort with us anyway. She's always been the special princess who thinks she's above everyone. Then Brooke's hesitant voice. But it's her wedding day. My father again, stern and final. The decision is made. No one from this family attends. Anyone who breaks ranks will be making their own statement about their loyalty. Brooke stopped the recording, her face pale but resolute. I should have stood up to them then. I should have been there for you. I'm so sorry, Sam. My father's face had turned an alarming shade of red. You've betrayed this family's trust, Brooke. There will be consequences. Consequences? I echoed. Like being cut off? Disinherited? Excluded from family events? Go ahead. You've shown exactly what your family is worth. I turned to my mother, whose face had crumpled into tears too late for me to find them convincing. You sat silently while he orchestrated this. You had concerns, but went along with it anyway. What kind of mother does that? Sam, please, she began. You don't understand the pressure. I understand perfectly. I cut her off. I understand that when forced to choose between my happiness and Dad's control, you chose his control. Every time. Finally, I addressed the room at large. I came here today hoping for an explanation that might help me make sense of what you did. What I got instead was confirmation that my family is toxic and dysfunctional in ways I can no longer ignore or excuse. I walked toward the door, then turned back one last time. You have a choice now. You can acknowledge what you did, offer a genuine apology, and commit to respecting my marriage and my boundaries going forward. Or you can continue to justify your cruelty and lose me forever. The choice is yours, but I won't be waiting around for you to make it. As I left the house, Brooke followed me to my car. Sam, wait. I want to come with you. I can't do this anymore either. I looked at my sister, the only one who had shown any remorse or courage, and nodded. Pack a bag. You can stay with us until you figure out your next steps. When I arrived home, Ryan was waiting anxiously. I told him everything, the confrontation, the recording, Brooke's decision to leave. Are you okay? He asked when I finished. His arms tight around me. No, I admitted, but I think I will be. For the first time since the wedding, I don't feel like I'm the one who did something wrong. They made their choices, and now they have to live with the consequences. Later that night, after helping Brooke settle into our guest room, I sat with Ryan on our balcony, looking out at the Chicago skyline. I gave them an ultimatum, I said. Acknowledge what they did and apologize, or lose me forever. Do you think they will? Ryan asked gently. I considered the question, thinking about the defiant set of my father's jaw, my mother's tears without action, Ethan's uncomfortable silence. No, I said, finally. I don't think they can admit they were wrong. It would unravel the entire family dynamic they've built. Then what happens now? Now I stop waiting for the family I've always wanted and accept the reality of the family I have, I said. And I focus on building something better with you, with Brooke, with your family who has shown me more love in 1 year than mine has in a lifetime. The decision was painful, but also freeing. For years, I had contorted myself to fit into my family's expectations, accepting their conditional love as the best I could hope for. Walking away was terrifying but necessary, a crucial step in breaking the cycle of emotional manipulation that had defined our relationship for too long. As Brooke snored softly in our guest room and Ryan's steady breathing beside me provided comfort, I realized that family is not just about blood or legal ties. It's about who shows up for you, who respects your choices, who loves you without conditions or expectations. By that definition, I hadn't lost my family at my wedding. I had finally seen them clearly for what they were and what they were not. 1 year after our wedding, Ryan and I celebrated our anniversary with a quiet dinner at the restaurant where he had proposed. The past 12 months had been a journey of healing, growth, and redefinition of family, of boundaries, of myself. To us, Ryan said, raising his glass of champagne. We survived the wedding from hell and came out stronger. To us, I echoed, clinking my glass against his. And to chosen family, therapy had been transformative. Dr. Martinez helped me understand that the pain I felt wasn't just about my family skipping the wedding, it was about a lifetime of conditional love and manipulation. She gave me tools to process my grief, to establish healthy boundaries, and to recognize when I was falling back into old patterns of seeking approval from people who would never freely give it. Grief doesn't follow a linear path, she reminded me during one particularly difficult session. You'll have days when you feel you've moved beyond it, and days when it hits you all over again. Both are normal. Both are part of healing. She was right. There were mornings when I woke up feeling light and free, grateful for the family I was building with Ryan. And there were nights when I cried over old photographs, mourning the relationships I had lost, or perhaps more accurately, the relationships I had finally recognized never truly existed in the first place. My relationship with Brooke had been an unexpected bright spot in the aftermath. After staying with us for 2 weeks following the confrontation, she had found an apartment nearby and a job at a local publishing house. Free from our family's toxic dynamic, she blossomed pursuing her passion for editing, making new friends, and developing a confidence I'd never seen in her before. I keep thinking about how I almost missed this, she told me over coffee one afternoon. How close I came to staying in that house, playing by those rules, losing my sister forever. It terrifies me. But you didn't, I reminded her. You were brave when it mattered most. Ryan's family had embraced both of us completely. Charlotte called weekly just to chat. Gerald invited Ryan and me to his workshop to learn woodworking, a hobby he'd enjoyed for decades. Madison and I had become genuine friends, meeting regularly for lunch or shopping. You know what's funny? Madison said during one of our outings. When Ryan first told us about you, I was worried you wouldn't fit into our family because we can be kind of overwhelming with all our togetherness. Now, I can't imagine us without you. 4 months after our anniversary, I discovered I was pregnant. The mixture of joy and anxiety I felt was complicated by thoughts of my estranged family. Would this news change anything? Should I even tell them? Ryan, as always, supported whatever decision I made. They're still your parents, your brother. You get to decide what role, if any, they have in our child's life. After much consideration and discussion with Dr. Martinez, I decided to reach out. Not because I expected a dramatic reconciliation, but because I wanted to give them one more opportunity to be part of our lives under new terms, with clear boundaries. I wrote individual letters to my father, mother, and Ethan. I didn't mention the baby yet, that news would come only if they could demonstrate real change. Instead, I expressed my continued hurt over their actions, my openness to rebuilding our relationship if they could acknowledge the harm they'd caused, and my non-negotiable requirement for respect toward Ryan and our marriage. The responses, when they came, were disappointing but not surprising. My father's letter was brief and defensive, reiterating that he had only ever wanted what was best for me, without acknowledging any wrongdoing. My mother wrote a longer, more emotional letter, expressing sadness about our estrangement but attributing it to misunderstandings rather than deliberate actions. Ethan didn't respond at all. When I showed the letters to Ryan, he held me as I cried, not from fresh hurt, but from the final release of hope for the family I had wanted them to be. I think I always knew, I said, wiping my tears. But I needed to try one more time, for our baby's sake. You gave them every chance, Ryan assured me. More chances than most people would have. As my pregnancy progressed, we created new traditions and memories. We hosted Thanksgiving at our apartment, with Brooke, Ryan's family, and a few close friends gathered around our table. We celebrated Christmas with his parents, exchanging thoughtful gifts and sharing stories late into the night. And throughout it all, I felt our child growing, a tangible symbol of the family we were creating, one built on love, respect, and genuine support. When our daughter Lily was born on a snowy February morning, the hospital room was filled with people who truly cared for us. Ryan's parents cooing over their first grandchild, Madison taking photos, Brooke crying happy tears as she held her niece for the first time, Lauren bringing coffee and bagels for everyone. There were no dramatic last-minute appearances from my parents, no tearful reconciliations in the delivery room. And, somehow, that was okay. The absence of toxicity was its own gift, allowing us to celebrate this new life without tension or walking on eggshells. As Lily grew, I found myself reflecting on the lessons I wanted to teach her about family, about love, about standing up for herself. I want her to know that love shouldn't come with conditions, I told Ryan one night as we watched our daughter sleep. That family is defined by actions, not blood. That she is enough, exactly as she is. She'll know, Ryan promised, because she'll see it every day in how we treat her and each other. On Lily's first birthday, we hosted a celebration in our backyard, a sunny June day filled with balloons, cake, and the people who had supported us through everything. As I watched Brooke help Lily toddle across the grass, Ryan's arm around my waist, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. The pain of my family's betrayal hadn't disappeared entirely, I doubt it ever will, but it no longer defined me or controlled my happiness. I had learned that forgiveness doesn't always mean reconciliation. Sometimes it means accepting what happened, acknowledging the grief, and choosing to build something better from the ashes. My journey taught me that while we can't choose the family we're born into, we absolutely can choose the family we create. We can surround ourselves with people who celebrate our joy rather than punish our independence. We can establish boundaries that protect our well-being. We can break cycles of dysfunction so that our children inherit healthier patterns. The table at Lily's birthday party was full of people who had shown up not just on the day she was born, but every day since, in ways both big and small. These were the people who would shape her understanding of family, of unconditional love, of showing up when it matters. And as I blew out the single candle on her cake, helping her tiny hands with mine, I made a silent promise to always be the parent she deserves, to create the family she needs, and to remember that sometimes the most loving thing we can do is to let go of the family we wanted in order to embrace the family we have. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've experienced family estrangement or had to create boundaries with toxic relatives, know that you're not alone. Sometimes the healthiest families are the ones we build ourselves, one conscious choice at a time. I'd love to hear about your experiences in the comments below. Has anyone else had family skip important events? How did you handle it? And if this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and consider subscribing for more stories about family dynamics, healing, and growth. Remember, your worth isn't determined by those who couldn't see it, it's reflected in the eyes of those who truly love you.